I was told I was just going to do a 30-minute speech on file sharing. Is that not the? Is that okay? Thank you.
Can I leave?
Yeah, no. I'm going to. You just have to watch. So thank you for that warm welcome. We're going to try and touch on a couple different kind of key topics here that I think are top of mind, I think, for most CIOs and IT organizations, and certainly, I mean, definitely most large companies that we have the privilege of working with around the future of work, collaboration, culture, how that's all changing. And Norm, you've been able to see this in a couple different environments. So I think just to kick things off, maybe we could step back and just level set on what are the big megatrends at Illumina right now, and maybe just set the context for everyone of what you're dealing with, and then we'll see how quickly we can go from gene sequencing to the challenge of working with millennials, and let's see how quickly we can get there.
So for us, it's about growth. We've been growing about 15% a year. Data is growing at 50% annually, and we already have more data that we're managing at Illumina than I was managing at Qualcomm at its heights. So 45 petabytes of information growing at 50% annually. So being able to manage that and then get some value out of it, I mean, be able to do something with it, both from a business perspective, which is my responsibility, but also from a business, and enabling that for our customers is really what's going on.
And you, so you were the CIO of Qualcomm for 17 years.
Yeah, 28 years there.
28 years there, so you had built your career there. First of all,
not a good career move. That is not something I would recommend.
Which one?
Well, staying any one place for that long.
For that long, okay. Maybe it pays well or something. You get a watch at the end of it or something, or?
They kind of said.
Do you have a plaque with your name on it at least?
No.
Okay. No. So I think that we were debating this outside. You suggest that's not a world record for CIO length. I posit that it is. Is it? But 17 years.
17 years was a long time. The company went through multiple iterations. When I joined the company, it was a defense contractor. There was 100 or so people. So it went through multiple iterations, and eventually became a licensing and a chip company. Yeah. Which really drove the growth, and that was most of my CIO tenure was in that business model. We did a ton of stuff on-prem, very little really in the cloud. We had some Salesforce and some stuff, but most of our data was on-prem, big data centers and all of that. And then culturally, it was an engineering-driven company, so collaboration and some of that was not exactly what they were looking for, and certainly we're not looking for IT to try and enable that.
We're gonna get into some of that cultural change, especially because you've seen two different models. I don't know if you recall this, but you have on one part, I think, a good record as in the how long you were the CIO of Qualcomm. Also, I think you hold the world record in the number of times I've been rejected by a CIO trying to get into an organization. I have no less than probably 23 emails from you saying, we're not doing cloud right now.
It wasn't anything personal.
No, well, I appreciate that. It felt very personal, but thank you for.
I was really trying hard not to go
nothing
there,
with the word box in it will ever get in here as long as I work at Qualcomm. But obviously different time, different environment, different culture, and I want to talk about some of those things. You came to Illumina. I would say a pretty different IT environment, different culture. Obviously, the speed of the business is pretty intense, given all the things that are happening in biotech broadly, life sciences broadly, and you guys have rapidly amassed a nearly $50 billion market cap company. When you came into Illumina just a couple of years ago, what was the environment that you inherited, and from a technology standpoint, and then we'll get into some of the culture side of that as well.
So when I joined Illumina, there was the CEO who had been essentially the founder was still there, and I joined, and he announced that he was retiring. So I don't know if it was me, but that happened. But he was very much management by walking around. He knew everybody by name. He would show up in the labs. Hated video conferencing. Collaboration was face to face. Didn't see anything. And IT was, particularly underinvested in. They had just come off a big SAP implementation. I thought, oh God, I dodged that bullet.
Yeah.
But no, I got in.
That was my predecessor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, it was almost a year of stabilization.
Okay.
Those of you that have lived through an SAP implementation, you know what that's like. But a lot of it was, the foundational work wasn't there. Mm-hmm. The new CEO actually came in from tech. He'd been an executive at Microsoft, he'd done 3 startups, he'd been at Symantec, and the first thing he said to me was, okay, Norm, I'm introducing myself to the company next month. I want to do a virtual all hands. I want every site to be able to communicate, ask questions, a virtual town hall. Make it happen, you got 4 weeks. So, we pulled that off, but we had literally nothing in place. Yeah. We had to go do all that in 4 weeks. We got it done. And he liked it so much that we now have done it every month since.
Oh, wow.
So we went from no interest in technology, no interest in collaboration technology, 180 degrees, a CEO who wants it now.
Yep.
Why isn't it, everywhere, and that's been kind of the world that I've really come into and really enjoyed. I mean, I'd much rather have this environment than the opposite.
And what, how has that, I mean, you don't have as much of the ability to compare the prior Illumina culture to the current one in this new world, but have you seen changes just in the past couple of years?
Oh, yeah.
Because of, okay.
A year and a half ago, we deployed Workplace, for example.
That's the new Facebook product.
And yeah, it's Facebook for the enterprise. I've never seen faster adoption of any piece of software. It was a terrific...
Well, you would have if you had used Box at Qualcomm, but that's fine. Okay, that's...
Well,
sorry.
They had already implemented Box before I got there, so they had already solved that problem. But it was just the right tool for this transition that was taking place, and it was the right tool for the culture. And it had the blessing or the enhancement, whatever you want to call it, of the CEO. Yeah. The general counsel hated it. Still hates it. Just sees it as a big complaint box.
Right.
And all the problems with litigation, and everything, discovery that it represents. But we have 5,000 of our 7,000 employees actively using. Workplace, and it's shifted a lot of communication away from email.
I think we all wonder, so what is going on in that set of channels? Or what are people talking about? Is this all sort of pure broadcast one-to-many, or are there sub-conversations many-to-many happening?
People create groups. Okay. They create private groups. They feel like they can collaborate amongst themselves. They share information. Box is tied into that, so the files are there. We do live streams and live video. We record video and post it to Workplace. It's a great way for new employees to come in and kind of get a sense of what's going on. They can drop in and see the history of communication on a particular topic.
I think that's actually a really key point, which is your ability to now instantly get context and some tribal knowledge that is not only filtered by the people that you most closely work with, but you come into an organization and you actually get a pulse for the company in a tenth of the time.
Oh, it's been a very effective tool for that.
But you don't ever see like the opposite, like somebody new joins and then they post like a message in the main channel, like, how do I get my computer set up? And you're like, hey, that's not what this is for?
No, okay. I'll get... I also run facilities in addition to IT. I guess they decided IT was not big enough. So,
is that a promotion or a downgrade?
I wasn't
nobody
sure,
knows.
But
okay.
People will post really disgusting pictures of stuff that they find in the bathroom. And just say,
under the workplace main. Okay.
Oh yeah, just hey, Norm or facilities, get this fixed.
Okay.
So
hopefully they don't call you out by name on this one.
Oh yeah,
okay.
No,
they do. Good.
They do.
Okay.
I'm
so
the
found this in the bathroom
janitor,
at Norm. Please check it out.
So I actually never realized that there was actually a department more complaints than IT. Try running facilities. You will get a lot. So now I get to do both. And we're actually going to combine our help desk, and we're going to combine the facilities help desk and the IT help desk. We run them both on ServiceNow. So I guess that's another form of collaboration, and we're going to tie that in with Workplace and the bots and feed stuff from Workplace right into tickets within ServiceNow.
So when you look at your current IT architecture for, let's just say, sort of the modern digital workplace, the set of tools that I'm an Illumina employee, I come into work, I'm doing my daily activity. What is that landscape set of applications that I'm interacting with? And maybe why have you made choices of not other tools? Like, why is it this set of tools versus a broader or different set of capabilities?
So when the company had historically been, kind of one size, one throat to choke kind of a thing. So it was SAP, it was Salesforce, it was Workday, nothing else, very little else, at least within the IT organization. It was Dell, it was EMC, it was Cisco. One of the things that I've done is tried to move us away from that, one size fits all, to much more of a best of breed. So we built out the integration platform, we built out an analytics platform, we've actually expanded the use of Box more broadly because it's a good tool to enable communication and sharing across multiple groups. And I'm not doing that because you're up on stage.
Although that's ideal, thank you.
But it is something that I believe in, and I'm happy to promote and talk about products that do the job.
Yeah.
I'll also give you shit, when it's not working right, which
I just prefer this version of the conversation, yeah.
But, we got the platforms, but a lot of what I've done over the last few years is build out the integration platform, the analytics platform, the identity management platform. They were using Workday for identity management. I mean, we had every single consultant in the company in Workday. I mean, we had suppliers and customers in Workday. So they had some crazy things because of lack of IT leadership and any sort of enterprise architecture.
What are you guys using for identity management?
Okta is the primary, Active Directory, and now SailPoint.
Okay. Am I allowed to do real-time surveys? Great, thank you. Well, how many people, raise your hand if you're using Okta, just as a, okay. We've certainly found it as a sort of a great base level way to launch into a multi-cloud architecture, just because of the user experience. So I wanted to get a sense, and that's certainly what we run on. So I'm an Illumina employee. I can come into work, and I have video, I have public collaboration, I have communication, all your email productivity in the cloud?
Yeah, 365.
Okay.
But it's actually interesting. If email was down at Qualcomm, the phone was ringing instantly. Yeah. I mean, that was kind of the thing that would cost me my job if email was down, because the whole company stopped if email was down. That is not the case with Illumina. We have multiple ways for people to communicate now. If Box is down, which hasn't happened in a long time, but it's been great. But it is something that is a key part of our business. But we're not dependent on it like we were maybe in the past. There's lots of different ways that we collaborate and share. And
I want to drill on that. I think that many organizations, and I know a handful of folks in this room, and I would say this is an audience biased toward modern cloud, best of breed types of architectures. I'm sure that not everybody is, but knowing a handful of folks in here. When we travel globally, though, there's inconsistencies of this war between best of breed versus I'm going to buy everything from one or two or three vendors. Yep. How, in your words, have you sort of thought about that? I mean, there's definite trade-offs. It is not like I come from a best of breed vendor, and so obviously I believe in one version of the future, but that version is very good for us, so that's why I believe in it. So it's very self-serving, although it is better. So when you're in a little bit more of an objective position, although you're right next to me. So
Box doesn't do everything.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, that's too bad to hear. Maybe we'll give you better customer success or something. But how have you thought about, though, this decision point of what should be best of breed and what should just be folded into, okay, I already have an O365 license. I just am going to roll more of my applications into that. And now there's Microsoft 365. They want to sell you everything.
Yeah, certainly.
So how do you make those decisions?
At OneDrive.
Yeah.
And we don't find that the user interface is quite where we want it to be. We don't think we would get the adoption. And trying to shift away from something that's working would not be something that, even though the price point is great because they throw it in for free, we're not going to go do that. So it's really about solving particular business problems,
right?
But also balancing that against cost.
Right.
We had the conversation about Slack. How many people use Slack here in your environment? Yeah, even more than Okta. Slack, we could not come to terms with Slack. We had hundreds of people using it, tried to come to terms with them on both the contract as well as the pricing. It is really expensive. So we've not been able to make the case for it. So we're going to go most likely to Mattermost, which is an open source alternative to Slack. And that looks to be our HipChat replacement versus the Slack, the way Slack would like to position it as. So we're about solving business problems, regardless of whether if SAP can do it, that's great. If something else can do it, we're fine with that, and we'll figure out how to integrate it.
And are you making these decisions? You basically, but if I translate that, are you making these decisions on a per sort of functionality basis to compare against the trade-offs that you are going to have to make? Where if that, basically a new product area emerges. Okay, there's a new innovation in CRM, and what's your CRM?
Salesforce.
Salesforce. So you've clearly decided Salesforce versus Dynamics, let's say.
Yep.
And was that a key decision point where you said, okay, Salesforce as a platform is going to be more feature rich. It's going to be more of an ecosystem, and so we're going to bet on best of breed versus Dynamics.
So we had Salesforce in our shop. It was used for customer service. It was used kind of everywhere within the sales organization. It was 8 years old, heavily customized. It really didn't even look like Salesforce. So we're doing a re-implementation. As part of that, we did a reevaluation. Is it something we want to stick with? We decided for the sales side, yes, it makes sense. It's a good fit there. We threw it out on the customer service side, and we're going to go with ServiceMax. We had Marketo, okay, industry leader, but really wasn't getting the job done for us. We're throwing it out, and we're going with Pardot. So each time there's an inflection point, we're happy to go look at what's there and see what makes sense based on what the current business needs are, what we can see ahead, the partnership, the deal we can get, all those things. Okay,
so sort of key moments of inflection in a market, in a technology space, in a new sort of set of problems you're trying to solve, that's when you'll address this. Are you, I'd be curious what your pain points are from the software industry side, but what I would generally characterize the best of breed ecosystem as largely so far we've been all sort of trying to innovate in our own work streams.
Yep.
And we're trying to nail content management, and Zoom is trying to nail video, and BlueJeans is in conferencing, Slack in channel-based communication. And we've all sort of now woken up in 2018, and in every environment, our technologies are overlapping and disconnected and all deployed in completely different ways. What are you seeing from the industry that you think we could be doing a better job at in terms of making the experience of working with this best of breed technology stack better? Or do you think everything's fine?
I love to hear vendors talk about being able to operate in the real world, which is a heterogeneous world, so that they recognize the realities. So many pitches that I hear, they come in and say, if you just buy our product, everything's solved. And just go all in on our product. And even if we could,
I have to change
it takes a while.
Sales decks from that comment. Yeah. Okay. That's like all of our sales materials. Okay. Yeah.
So hey, let's talk about a transition. We're gonna have to live. Even if we went all in on some of this stuff, it's still gonna take a while. How do you manage that?
Yep.
How do you interoperate with other things? What are the APIs? What are the microservices that are enabled to allow us to work together? You obviously partner well with Okta, so that works. You do that, but that doesn't happen everywhere in all the tools that we like. We're primarily an engineering company, that seems to be the last place that people think about integrating to.
Right.
Is engineering tool sets, Confluence, and some of those tool sets. So that's frustrating, for us. And we either have to live without it or figure out how to do it ourselves.
Yeah, I think we're moving from a world where we have to kind of, where we need to sort of less think about, okay, there's this one center of gravity and one hub, and everything else is a little spoke on that hub in the entire IT stack. And more, it's a constellation of tools that it's more of a web-like structure where if I'm a sales rep, my view of the world is through Salesforce, and I want everything to feed into that Salesforce view. If I'm an engineer and I'm communicating or collaborating, maybe that's coming in through Confluence or Jira or Slack, and I want everything through that view of the world. And so the sort of malleability of the architecture of how all of our systems have to come together is where I think we need to move our architectures. And the software industry is doing nobody any favors on making that easy, to be very clear, because everybody sort of has their own kind of roadmaps that don't necessarily all coordinate align. And I think the biggest risk for the best of breed ecosystem is that we do such a poor job of making sure our technologies work together that we make it easier for companies just to go to the incumbent and the suite provider, because it's all going to, maybe they'll get less innovation and less sort of speed of development, but the technology will at least kind of plug in.
There's a lot of IT shops that don't have the bandwidth or the capability or the skill set to deal with integrating all this stuff.
Yeah.
They don't have the ability to do cybersecurity themselves. They have to rely on other people to do that. So for them, they're going to go with the one size fits all because it solves all those problems that they can't solve themselves. Yeah. And that's a chunk of the market. So I mean, companies have been successful selling into that. For us, that is not the value we bring to Illumina as an IT organization, and not what they're looking for from us.
So we've talked mostly about the ability to make strategic IT decisions in this, and these are relatively tops-down decisions. How do you feel about the state of, I don't know, employees testing and trying out new technology, bringing that to your team? Kind of shadow IT.
Most of what we do is POC based. A lot of it's bottoms up.
Okay.
Workplace was bottoms up. Box was bottoms up. I'm very happy to use that and say, okay, now it's the standard. Okay. Because we're seeing adoption. But going back to my Qualcomm days, we would do a lot of that. I kind of called it the Darwin theory of software evaluation. Mm-hmm. You just throw it out there. You put several of them out there, and then see which one actually survives. Mm-hmm. But without leadership support, they can only go so far.
Right.
So workplace was not something that our CEO said, oh, we got to have it. We put it out there because he talked about wanting to do more collaboration. We put it out there, did a POC. Right. We had 300 people authorized, as part of the licensing to do the POC. We had 1,200 people at the end of the POC. I couldn't keep them off the dang thing. That's the kind of adoption, and made for a very easy sell. Right. And then the CEOs say, okay, if this is the right tool, I'll jump on and utilize it. Right. And that's how it became so widely adopted. It was kind of bottoms and top.
And how are you saying? So these are the software solutions to this problem of a modern way of working. How are you now seeing work change? And is it kind of, are these things happening in concert, or are they disconnected at all? Like, is the culture and technology evolving at the same pace? How's that working?
It's a combination, so that we enable a lot more video and a lot more of this collaboration, and the organization took to it, and then we start seeing the organization pushing to do more. So it's a little bit of, hey, it's out there, you can start to use it, but now because it's been there, the culture has adopted it, and the culture has shifted. Like I said, 3 years ago, there was no video in the company. Now, video, we have millions of minutes of video, meeting video conferencing. It's just taken off, and our meetings have evolved to no longer be face-to-face. I've seen travel drop because people are doing much more video conferencing because they're comfortable with it. But one of the things I figured out, and it was a little bit of trial and error, not every conference room layout actually works.
Right.
And we found that certain conference rooms layouts didn't match the way our meetings actually are run. And those rooms, we got lots of complaints about, they wouldn't get used. And then the other ones where the layout of the conference room actually facilitated the conversation.
You've found that meeting room type?
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, and it's not every meeting type. The CEO runs his meetings
different
a certain
styles
way,
of
so
audiences
we have a
and
configuration that works in those styles.
And does your conference room technology work?
Yeah.
That's incredible. Okay, you should get another
it's
award.
Not ours.
You should get another award for that.
But
okay.
It is.
This is the hardest problem in technology today.
It is. It's still a hard problem.
Okay.
Believe
Video
me.
conferencing.
It's not.
Okay.
But actually, I had no idea that the synergies between facilities and IT was actually going to work out quite the way it did.
Right.
Because now I'm forcing change in the workplace and the actual facilities to match up with the technology and vice versa.
And are you actually? And are you seeing that I mean, that's to me the irony has been. So I'm very oriented toward in-person collaboration. Obviously, if you have to be remote, obviously video, then instantly you need a video. But to me, that's completely consistent with building a digital organization, because now the question is, how do you take that in-person collaboration and scale that across the company where you have access to the information about what other people are doing, so you get the right context and the right data to make better decisions so you can move even faster. And so this sort of digital and physical relationship is actually way more harmonious than I think we initially think. We almost think of them as like there's a dichotomy of are you more of an in-person shop or more of a virtual shop? And it's actually like the two together is what lets you scale this modern way of working.
Two of my biggest partners now at Illumina are employee communications and HR.
Yep.
Both from a facilities as well as an IT standpoint. I mean, I didn't have real relationships in the way I have them here at Qualcomm, because they just didn't think about technology as a way to further what they were trying to do at those companies. They do here, and we partner quite extensively. I mean, I still have all the other normal partnerships with ops and engineering and so on, but to be this engaged with employee communications is new. That's new for me.
I think we all remember 5 years ago, Gartner put out the CMO is the new CIO, and then the 7 years prior is the head of sales is the new CIO.
Does anybody actually listen to Gartner? Anyway,
is this we can edit certain parts of this, right? Later, okay. We pay them enough money that I can only say nice things. You
should be able to say anything you want if you're paying them that much money.
You'd be surprised about this business model. I feel like I just pulled an Elon Musk on that one.
You can blame it on me.
Okay, thank you. Can we just put his voice on any words I just said? But it was, regardless of maybe the specifics and the numbers and all of that, it was very true that we had this marketing automation wave that transformed how most organizations had to think about IT enablement of the go-to-market function. Had to get closer to your customer, had to use data in completely different ways to get more personalized in terms of how you're targeting marketing, all of that. You had to understand your customer base on data, all that stuff. So that was a very real wave in general, regardless of is the CMO the new CIO, all that. Would you be willing to say that we're seeing a new emergence of that same thing now in the HR side, which is not that the HR is the new CIO, but that this pairing of HR and IT is now fundamental, because we've been in this world of 20 or 30 years of IT was back office systems, make sure they run on time, close the books, keep the lights on, make sure people have basics in technology to work. And then all of a sudden, our highest cost part of our business, our people that come into work every day, we're making decisions on should we spend $30 a month on them or $100 a month on them on technology tools, not really caring what is the actual productivity we can get out of the performance of those teams and those individuals using technology, using facilities to sort of coordinate that effort. Do you see this as the next big wave then in IT decision making of people, performance and teams and culture? Sorry to start yelling.
I always think that this is kind of, it's funny when they come out with this thing. it's all about marketing. Like, we just can forget about everything else we're working on and doing, and we just have to focus on marketing, and we'll be, judged successful. We still have to do all those other things.
Right.
None of that goes away.
Right.
Now we just got to figure out how to partner with HR and worry about collaboration and employee communication, and it becomes additive. They're not giving us any more budget for any of this.
But can't you steal the HR budget a little bit?
Yeah, well, I tried,
okay.
but we're trying to partner too.
Okay.
So
right.
you can only do that so much. But yes, and I still have marketing, that we're dealing with because of the last wave of all of this. So it's really more about all of this, every function. And we talked a little bit about this morning. AI is, enabling all kinds of different things, but technology is just enabling a whole bunch of stuff that we just didn't do in the past.
Right.
And IT is the way to do that for, in most companies. So we just keep getting more to do.
Right.
And I'm happy, to have the company, to be at a company where they're investing in us.
Right.
And saying, okay, we want IT to do more, and they're willing to, ask us to do more.
Which should argue for IT budgets should increase with the amount of digitization happening across all these new functions.
Yep.
And
to some degree, we've gotten some of those, and we can make those arguments. But at the same time, I've got to go, extract savings out of infrastructure and look at other ways to fund some of this new stuff by getting out of the more expensive legacy technologies and so on and so forth.
And now on the softer side, and then we're going to open it up for any kind of questions. But on the softer side, have you seen any change in the day-to-day work in terms of collaboration and sort of style of work because of this either set of tools or just the cultural change and recognition that we have to move faster, we have to be able to get to market more quickly, we have to be closer to our customer. One thing that we've been seeing in a bunch of non-software industries is this taking the kind of essence of agile, which buzzwords aside, really just means small teams able to iterate and pivot quickly, be able, having really kind of small planning cycles so you can actually test your hypothesis much faster. That approach to work now manifesting in HR, in marketing, in finance, across organizations and across sort of industries to non-technology or non-software industries. Are you starting to see that in the non-engineering parts of Illumina? It's
actually a significant trend. For us, we create these virtual teams. So we're functionally organized, the traditional purchasing, accounting, engineering. But these virtual teams are cross-functional. Mm-hmm. And we actually need to create virtual spaces for them to work in, as well as physical spaces. So we're creating project rooms that are both physical as well as virtual project rooms for them to collaborate. Box is one of those ways that these teams collaborate and share information and work on what they need to produce together in a virtual project space. Yeah. But we actually are creating physical spaces that are technology enabled for them to work in. And they're not conference rooms. They kind of look like a conference room, but they're not. They have some of the same technology, but they can book them for months at a time. And they're dedicated to that team and that project. And we will actually rechange the layout. In one area, we took everything off the walls and we just put whiteboard on all the walls. Mm-hmm. We put a lot more technology. We took out all the conference room table and we put workstations in the room. Because they're in there all the time and they need to be able to work. So half the room is kind of a table and half the room is workstations for them to work. They don't even need their offices anymore. Right. Not their cubicles. They don't have their individual spaces anymore.
That's the team space.
That's their team space,
right.
And that's where they're working. But it was, it took me going in there and saying, why is this layout this way, this physical layout? I had to go force the change, the physical change in addition to the technology.
It's funny, I tend, now, anybody inside of Box would just scream at me for saying this, but like you actually tend to get the highest level of productivity in war room mode.
Absolutely.
And so it's like, why isn't that just the way we're always working?
Yeah.
Just like everything should be a war room. Like war room for this thing, and that's this model of like you're with the team that is producing the work. You're doing stand-ups. You're checking in. That should not be an exceptional set of behaviors. That should be standard of just how you remain agile in everything that you're doing.
Yeah, so we experimented with a whole bunch of different kinds of conference room layouts, bookable, unbookable. Some were more popular than others, but we were experimenting with it.
Yeah.
But mostly what we did was we de-emphasized individual workspaces.
Right.
And said, we're not going to invest in as much of that as we are. We're not going to make them as nice. And we're going to make our collaboration spaces, both in number, but also the amenities associated with it and how it feels to be in those rooms better. And then also just places where people can spontaneously team up.
That's cool. Awesome. Do we have time for a couple quick questions for Norm? Cool. Okay. That was great.
Yeah, no, thank you. It was fun.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay.
Interactions between people to see what the real organization looks like beyond it all, and how
Yeah, we do a lot of metrics around how people are using it, where they're using it, how many people are coming in from remote, how many people are in the room versus coming in. How are they coming in? Are they coming in on the phone? We were getting a lot of complaints about dropped calls and call quality for people coming in remote. And then I found out they were actually doing Blue Jeans video while driving. and they were actually putting their iPad on the steering wheel in freeway traffic. And we said, this is probably not the best way so we kind of said, no, we're not going to try and solve that problem. You need to actually get on it, and do an audio call and do it that way. But yeah, so we don't have enough. We're pushing for Blue Jeans to give us more data on that.
I'm kind of curious to Aaron's point about organization and the virtual meeting the real. Can you look at people's productivity, the efficacy of individuals and their interactions and how they kind of move together?
We have not tried to turn it into a productivity measure that way. You can kind of extrapolate, from that, and you just see the growth of the usage. But productivity measures and being able to attribute it to one thing when there's so many different things that we're doing to try and enable that, it's hard.
I think so. Anytime, we started the company in 2005. Everything about Box should be super digital, super sort of digital from the ground up. And I'll still, fortunately, mostly in non-engineering and IT departments, I'll still run into and bump into teams that are not kind of being quote unquote agile. Like in a marketing department where you have sort of this waterfall process of developing a launch plan or a website, and it's first of all it's like I'm deeply offensive, I freak out, and then but so what we'll end up seeing is in areas like that we're not going to measure productivity change, but you create some proxy metric for have you changed the execution, and in our case it might be just like literally like iterations on the website that go live. And all of a sudden, once the work style changes, you can just completely see that metric kind of continue to completely transform. So I haven't found a way to normalize it across find a way to normalize it across all types of work. But if you choose something that is an output metric of the function that currently has a pretty slow or waterfall or bureaucratic process, we see it every single time. That output metric begins to the frequency at which you can move it changes dramatically. Yeah, but I think you have to get a little bit in the weeds of like what is the specific output of that team or function that should change because of this.
Yep.
Hey, I was wondering when you mentioned Slack might be too expensive. How do you evaluate the cost of these new collaboration tools? Because I completely agree, you can go crazy with the cost if you adopt every single new tool on the market. But what's your perspective on that?
You talking about Mattermost versus Slack, or
just if you bought all the tools, I guess, right?
Yeah. Because it's basically a couple of dollars per employee, but it can add up.
If you bought every tool that every VC funded in Silicon Valley, your IT budget would be 300% of your revenue as the company. So how do you sort of think through that?
So the best way I've found to establish and control technology and technology standards is actually through the wallet. So for anything that I will standardize and set as a technology standard, I pay for. Paid for by the IT department and allocated out. If another department wants to bring in another piece of software, then they got to pay for it. And if it's duplicative, if there's enough business reason, okay, go for it. And I'm not going to block that, but I'm not going to necessarily allow it to get outside of that particular area. Now, if it becomes successful enough, I will consider adopting it as a standard, and then I'll move it into my budget. But I find that, for example, analytics tools. We set Tableau as our enterprise standard. It's worked out very, very well. It's great for self-service. Finance loves Cognos. Okay, Cognos, you can have that. You're paying for it. So nobody else is picking up Cognos outside of finance. Supply chain likes Power BI. I said, all right, you can pay for it. And all of a sudden, they weren't interested anymore. And Tableau became their standard. So that has worked out as the best way I've found to actually help manage technology sprawl.
Okay, I think we're getting the time's up. Kick us out kind of thing. So, Norm, Norm, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Great conversation. And good luck on transforming how you work. Thank you.
Thank you.